Howdy, howdy, and happy new year. It is hashtag TQIF on Saturday instead of Friday. Again, we'll be back to Fridays next week though, but yeah, we are here to talk about a mid-season finale of Star Trek Discovery Season 4, and then we're going to have some late night fun over on the Starfleet Boy After Dark channel. Because I have
Yeah.
Starfleet Boy here with me, so it's going to be a fun double lineup for those of you watching live.
Happy New Year, Father, and Tex-Trek subscribers and viewers. Nice to be here again. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. We took last night off to let everyone celebrate and ring in the new year. Hope everyone has a happy 2022. But we will now go ahead and start the first Text Trek podcast of the new year.
Very
So wasting
exciting.
no time getting this started. I'm Fathery,
I'm Starfleet Boy.
and this is Text Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 171st installment of the Text Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new, and proud members of the Trek Sphere Network. And tonight we are talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 7, the mid-season finale, But to Connect. Written by Terri, Hughs, Burton, and Carlos Cisco, and directed by Lee Rose.
Almost the right spelling of Cisco.
Yeah, there's a not the emissary, the other
Not
one.
the
This is
emissary.
spelled like the cooking oil, or
Right.
is it like the IT
The
software,
trucks.
the
Is it
routers?
IT? Oh, yeah. No, that one's SY.
Oh, okay.
CY, sorry. CY, I think. Yeah.
Well,
Or is it
infinite
SY?
diversity and infinite combinations
Of
for
Cisco's.
spellings of Cisco. But yeah, we have a big episode to talk about, a mid-season finale. And before we get into that, though, I just want to make a little announcement that next week we will be covering Star Trek Prodigy. I think Brian's going to be on the show discussing those episodes with me. We have 5 Prodigies up and starting next week. And then we will go back to the 32nd century for more Discovery in February and finish that up in March when I think we're going to be getting some Star Trek Picard. I think they're pushing that
Yeah.
back to let Disco wrap up, and we'll see Picard in March.
And then
My
hot off the
prediction.
heels of Picard, or maybe during its run, will be in Chicago. Fingers crossed, provided there's no world-ending events between here and there.
Yeah, hopefully. There's a lot of cool Star Trek stuff coming up in 2022.
Yeah, it's gonna
So
be a great year.
first year ever, we're gonna have 5 shows on at the same time. Never happened before, so that's gonna be really fun, and we're gonna be covering all of that. And I hope that our audience continues to enjoy the programming that we provide. And I see a lot of people in our live audience. Thank you for the kind words, Chalupa Chong, and good to see a lot of our regulars, Blue and Jude and Jill and Michael. So glad all of you could be here to join us, and everyone who can't make it live but you're listening or watching this later. Thank you for carrying Text Trek into the new year, into 2022, and anyone who's a new listener, please by all means join the family. We'd love you to give us a 5 star on whatever podcast app you're using to listen to us, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, or do both. It really does help us, and we want to just continue to grow and keep doing what we're doing. But as far as this episode goes, I'm just going to quick recap it by reading the official synopsis, and then I'll kind of expand on that with spoilers to refresh it for everyone, and then we'll each kind of just give our broad feelings on the episode. The official synopsis reads, "Tensions rise as representatives from across the galaxy gather to confront the threat of the Dark Matter Anomaly. Zora's new sentience raises difficult questions." Yeah, so basically we have this A story and B story of what do we do with the DMA? Do we attack it? Do we try to make a diplomatic, peaceful first contact? And that is mirrored with the debate on board the Discovery of what to do with Zora, who's now this intelligent, emotion-having entity. And is it scary? Is it cool? How do we feel about that? And things end with, good news for Zora. She's earned the trust of everyone, and she's going to be able to stay in her form on board the Disco. But bad news for Burton, because Book and his buddy Tarka decide to run off and attack the DMA on their own and spore drive Book's ship away from Disco at the very end with our mid-season cliffhanger.
So, very true.
I'm just going to give my impressions of the episode real quick, and then we'll find out how Starfleet Boy feels about it. Just my kind of overview take on this. This episode, I liked it a lot. This is the first time I've enjoyed the larger arc in a while. The last couple of weeks, I was very worried about the direction they were taking the DMA. I didn't want it to be this other big bad who's controlling this thing and have this big reveal of here's this major threat that this one bad guy is in charge of, and we're gonna have to deal with them in the finale. And it looks like they're actually doing something a little smarter with that, which is what I hoped from the beginning. So I'm back on board with the season-long arc for now. We'll see how it goes. I still need to see all 13 to have a final decision. But I was delighted with both the moral quandaries presented in this episode, in the thematic ties between them. I like seeing the 32nd century politics. I think a lot of us, especially if you grew up on like DS9, you're kind of really into the galacto-political happenings in Star Trek. And I think it's even cooler when you can do it on Disco, because we're just now exploring this 32nd century. We've only had 13 episodes last year and 7 episodes this year take place in this time period. So anything we can do to kind of flesh that out is a lot of fun to watch. I'm very on board the personal conflict between Book and Burnham as a device to show the larger conflict in these two opposing but still understandable ideas. I get where both of them are coming from, and there's just a lot of drama when you make this couple that we've been enjoying seeing them together and be kind of a happy couple for a while. And when we see this divide between them, it really makes this whole debate have that personal stake. So I loved that. And there was a very thrilling cliffhanger for a mid-season finale. The writing in the show has really stepped up this season. I don't know if that was because they had to take some time off for COVID and that allowed them to punch up the scripts, or what exactly happened there. But the writing is definitely impressing me more now than it ever has before. Not always perfect, but still fantastic more often than not. And I really especially appreciated how the show had so much confidence in this episode, in its writing, to have a big talky episode with just a bunch of like talky scenes, for that to be their big pivotal moment in the season. And they didn't resort to some attempt at big high octane action, like Discovery often does, and sometimes does very well. But they didn't resort to that. They were like, no, we're just gonna let the scenes that we've written here, we're just gonna let that have the weight and carry the episode. And so bravo on being confident and delivering like that. All that being said, I do have a couple of nitpicks, like I'm always going to have with any Star Trek show. I'm going to have my nitpicks. Some of the technical details on how the voting and the assembly work was a little wonky, like who gets to vote, each planet gets how many representatives, they're voting on both sides.
Welcome to the Electoral College.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, still whack in the 32nd century, I guess. Oh, and Zora proving her goodness by, we could just look into her soul and see this Discovery clip show of her dreams, and that's how we know she's good. That's kind of cheap and easy, but I liked and loved most everything else in the episode. So I had a great time.
AI subconsciousness is shades of gray the episode just like
Yeah.
it's a clip show.
Were we going for Measure of a Man with that, or are we going for Shades of Grey? I mean, like, the best episode of TNG season 2 or the worst? You decide.
You decide. It's true. Father, you kind of took the words out of my mouth for most of what you're saying, and your nitpicks are really interesting. I think actually, I hadn't thought of it, but it is kind of like a clip show kind of vibe to that. And
I mean, it's a convenient visual device that wraps up the story nicely. It's just
right.
not the deepest thing, but I mean, I get it. Like, you got to resolve this so you can move on to the next part of your stories. It is what it is.
I saw a very cool explanation for the whole voting thing from someone who really like was tuned in and like I guess gets all that like diplomatic voting stuff, and so apparently it was very accurate, like using action and motion and things like that, you know. So but yeah, I was kind of, for a while I was confused. I was like, wait, which side is like, you know, which, she said the results are clear, but it says like, you know, for action, and everyone's got like, you know, for the action, and it's the action of making a proper first contact. So that's what the vote was for. So I hadn't caught that, but there's a lot. Anyways, just to kind of
No. The action was for not, that wasn't the diplomatic solution. The action was to use the weapon.
No. I know, but like the motion or the action
They
was to vote.
They raised their hands to vote for using the weapon.
No, because Burnham
Yes.
raised her hand.
Or no, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
It was to vote not to. It was to vote to do the. Yeah, exactly.
But they were. But if you raised your hands, that went on the not action side.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. It is. It is kind of confusing.
It is kind of confusing.
And then there's like 3 or 4 Vulcans voting, but not all the Federation worlds were present. There's 60 Federation worlds, but there's only like 40 people here voting, and not all of them.
Some
are
folks were
Federation.
voting. She does say in the beginning, for those of you who are here and also remotely. So there could have been some worlds that were there remotely. So who knows? But anyways, just to kind of like, the only thing I would add to what you said was I'm just like, I want to kind of not add but expand on, is that the writing is phenomenal the whole season. Like, and I feel like the show's really hit its stride, and I'm just enjoying the heck out of it. There's not like a lot of nitpicks that I have as I used to. And I'm just like able to kind of like really enjoy the story. And you're right, there was a lot of like really good drama, high drama I would call it, and you know, just the way this show was edited. Shout out to Chad Rebell, who's a really good editor, and you know, I think it was done really well. Like, just like how Stamets and Burnham kind of were on the same mission. It would often, like, they would often do this clever thing of like Stamets would start saying something and then Burnham would finish saying it, but it's 2 different contexts. Like, I just enjoyed the way the episode was put together, on top of all the great writing and all the great storytelling that was going on this week.
Cool. Well, we're gonna go into our episode breakdown now and discuss every beat in great detail, and we're just going to start things at the very beginning of the episode, at the opening, kind of the initial setup of both our A story and B story. But we pick up shortly where last week's episode, Stormy Weather, left off, with Discovery being repaired in either the Archer dry dock or a similar looking dry dock. And we cut to Zora calculating the origin point of the 10C, you know, still investigating where the DMA came from, and she's not wanting to turn over the coordinates. Kind of starts that plot line, and Burnham's trying to bond with Grudge, and we get the setup of the assembly of bringing all these different worlds together to discuss what plan of action the Federation is going to pursue on what to do with the DMA. And there's already, you know, initially right off the bat, some tension because we have Earth, who the president really wants to bring into the Federation. You know, they're represented by General Ndoye, who we met her in season 3. And, you know, Earth is taking a more hostile approach, as we'll see in a moment. Other
More
people
aggressive, I would say,
a little bit more chill, yeah. But you know, there's lots of different species there. We have Tarina from Navarre is there. The Butterfly King is back. Before we get into any of the debate stuff, though, like, what did you think of just this initial setup, the Zora stuff, and then, you know, what's I guess, Kovich coming to do a evaluation, and then the idea of like this assembly.
I think because we're like really, we're spending a lot of time in this landscape, and they're doing, I think, such a good job at world building that this was really exciting for me. Like, it was cool to see some new species as you have up on the screen right now. Like, there's some interesting, maybe they're not new, but like species we haven't seen in a long time. I found out afterwards that like, and shout out to, I guess it's who's the costume designer? Gersha Phillips.
Gersha Phillips.
Yeah, and I'm so bummed I didn't have a chance to watch the Ready Room this week, but apparently there's like a lot there. But some of these like outfits and stuff that the aliens are wearing are actual couture pieces, or like from like real life, and they've been on the runway and stuff like that. And so a lot of people are spotting them and saying, "I like, look, there's the Prada this or the whatever," and so that's been really kind of a cool thing. But yeah, just overall like. As far as in-world goes, like I was really excited to see this. I liked that they like amped up the scale a little bit with that huge, kind of showing that huge chamber or whatever, like the spire, and like each of the rings has delegates and stuff like that in them. So that was pretty cool, and just the amount of extras. It looks like there's a lot of people.
Yeah,
in
which was
this
hard
and
to
stuff
do.
like that.
They were shooting this under the strict COVID protocols. I think later, when we get into the second half of the season, we're going to see the stuff that they shot over the summer when
Which
they
was
were
a little different.
a lot more loose with what they could do. I think the stuff was shot before the vaccine was readily available, so everyone had to quarantine for 2 weeks before shooting. You could only have a limited number of people on set at any time. I think they were having to have like some extras double up, and I don't know if they were how many times they might have had like the same
Person.
character appeared twice. There were some
yeah.
shots where it's like, oh, I think I see like 2 of the exact same Lurian or 3 of the exact same Lurian, some
Right
stuff
on.
like that. But I mean, they're doing the best that they can under the conditions they shot this. But it with that being said, it still felt like one of the bigger things they'd done in season 7. It reminded me of Star Trek 4, when you get to see all
There's a vibe
some kind
like
of
that.
goofy,
Yeah, it's like true.
some of the more whimsical looking
true.
design. I don't mean goofy in a negative way. It's just
Yeah.
kind of that, Mike McMahon on Lower Decks, he really loves leaning into like a lot of these more whimsical, maybe even slightly outlandish alien designs.
Like the dandelion head person.
Yeah,
That was
but I liked that. I liked
yeah,
that creature.
Me too.
Uh,
Me too.
yeah, and
my
there were
nitpick-
familiar faces as well.
My only nitpick is like I get that like there's a lot of humanoid shaped life forms out there, but like everyone's hands are the same. So I wish they would just do different hands every now and then, like just to like mix it up. Yeah, not just gloves, but I get it. It's like
Well,
that's like
when-
it's a tiny little nitpick. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, like that just happens that most of the extras you hire are gonna have 5-digit hands. So
Well, like what's the
unfortunately,
what's like the slughead species guy called
the
who's
Schlurm.
yeah, Schlurm. Like if you look at his illustration, he has cool like flipper kind of hands. Like I wish they would do that because it doesn't have to. I guess maybe that's like something you see a lot more in Star Wars and Star Trek.
Hey,
the
the original series gave the Tellarites 3 fingers, and
It's
and
true,
then
that's
they
true.
later had 5 on
Had
Enterprise.
5.
So
Also, Klingons, to their credit, the Discovery Klingons, I liked the hands because they were like, they weren't like finger, like
I didn't
humanoid
like
fingers.
those.
I know, I know, but that was one of the things I enjoyed. I was like, oh look, this alien has like weird hands. Like it's not like it's not like exactly like human fingers or human hands. But yeah, that's a tiny nitpick. But I love Kovich like this. I'm glad they have given David Cronenberg a bigger part this season, and I like this cool. Like I wondered about that. Like how do how do you do like classified stuff on these screens? And they answered the question there, where you can have like a private. It even says privacy mode.
yeah, when Kovich is using his little holographic interface when he's meeting with Burnham, and then later throughout the episode he's taking notes. It kind of makes you nervous if you're one of the characters, right? Because you're like, oh my god, this guy is like evaluating everything I say and do. Like, what is he writing down? What kind of notes is he taking? Well, what do you think about that like whole idea of just like Zora won't divulge the coordinates? Like that'd be like if you're talking to Siri or something and she's just like, actually I know what's best. I'm not gonna do that for you. Sorry.
Weird stuff like that does happen with Siri. I'll just say that. I was really annoyed. I was kind of like, come on, and I was on Stamets' side for a little bit. I trust Zora, and like I feel like Zora's like an interesting character, and I'm really glad she's there. But it, I didn't really like. I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about it, but because they brought her emotional like state into it, and that she's having like basically a panic attack or like some kind of like, you know, like an emotional feeling, not a rational feeling, and that she realized that at the end. I ended up loving it because I thought that was great. So she's learning to deal with her again. She's learning to deal with her emotions. She's very rational. She's very protective. I just enjoyed that whole part of it, and I thought it was a good counterpoint to, or kind of like maybe a juxtaposition to what was going on in the diplomacy storyline. And I thought it was great. Like they were both trying to use, both Stamets and Burnham were trying to use very rational and logical arguments to make their point to the other side.
I actually question if that worked, the pairing of Stamets' argument and Burnham's argument, because Burnham was arguing from perhaps like the more compassionate point of view and not the defensive reactionary point of view, and Stamets is the total opposite. He has the less compassionate, more defensive reactionary approach
I
in
guess
regards to Zora.
I guess I just mean that they both use like very good logic in their arguments. Like when when Stamets finally comes after all the evaluation of Zora's intelligence and discovering that she's a life form and everything like that, he's still on the fence. And what like he still says it's un he still is arguing for the coordinates, and that's the whole thing. It's like Zora has to come to the realization that like protecting them by holding back information is actually hindering them. Like she needed to realize that like the true trust, the true like the right thing to do, the correct right action is to trust the crew who she knows really well. I mean, if she's known them for this whole time, like why would she like feel like she needs to like withhold information from them? They're perfectly capable of like, doing the same thing that she wants them to, of keeping themselves safe. I don't know. I just thought, and so Burnham was using like the logic of like, saying that we're all. I think she was trying to say we're all reacting emotionally to something that we don't know anything about, and I like that argument she made with the animals who do these things that like are very aggressive, but
So they're both kind of
it's like,
arguing against emotion.
yeah, exactly.
They're they're
Not
both kind of
compassion, not necessarily compassion. Compassion can exist, I think, without emotion, as the Jedi like to say, or whatever. No, sorry, wrong franchise, but you know what I mean. So yeah, she's trying to say like, yeah, we're reacting with anger, with emotion. Like we should be reacting with compassion instead, which is not necessarily an emotion, but more of a state, like a kind of way of being.
okay. Well, let's talk about when we actually get into the assembly and the debate, like the heart of the matter here. The delegates, like I was saying, they're debating. They start debating real quickly, by the way, but how to approach the DMA with Earth being more aggro, Navarre being more chill, and wants to investigate and try to make first contact before they decide what exactly to do. But Tarka is kind of the wild card when he steps in and presents this weapon that he has invented that he says they can use against the DMA. It'll stop it from destroying any more planets. And there's all this controversy around the specific technology he's using. One of the things that I thought was really cool here, though, is seeing the president have to play politics and do like a lot of shitty stuff that would piss me off if I was Michael Burnham. I'd find this very annoying, but I get why the president is doing it, where she is really hoping to get Earth back in the Federation, and that makes sense. The Federation probably see that as like a big morale boost if we'd get Earth back and so she's trying to like stay on Earth's good side.
Yeah, totally. That was fun to kind of like observe all these like little nuances. And I really like that Earth is kind of Earth, which is basically like one of the founding members of the Federation, like was probably like the most Federation-y of it, as we know from Archer and Enterprise, and like watching the events in that, and like just like a lot of the work was done. I think there was a lot of work done by humans, by Earthlings, to make that Federation a reality, to get those founding members to come together. And I like that Earth is a holdout. I hope they're the last of the founding members to come back.
Earth is kind of what the Vulcans were in Enterprise. That's
Right,
kind of
I
what Earth
agree.
is now.
Yeah,
Where they're
yeah.
kind of the dickheads, you know?
They are. They're
Like,
completely, they totally are. It's true.
I love seeing that, how things are so different 1,000 years later. Now like, oh, like I am actually liking the Vulcan woman, and the Earth woman is the one who I think is wrong in the situation. She's being kind of a jerk. But that's kind of shows them in season 3. They were very militarized, isolationists. That's starting to change. They have a new inclusive president that I'm guessing at some point. I think Earth might be a target of the DMA later in the season, so we might meet that president then.
My anxiety is through the roof. I can't take it. No, not Earth.
But they've become friends with Titan, so
Yep.
good for them. But
So
they're still kind of aggro, as we were saying.
I like that. I also like that moment where General Ndoye kind of gives Burnham Burnham got a lot of good. There's a lot of good payoffs in this scene from all the efforts of the previous season, like these little meetings that and we have, of course, Earthlings, and Discovery made a big difference, as she acknowledges, when just through that one encounter it like created a change, which just goes to show like Discovery's presence in this bleak future is very important. It's very integral. Like they're like in I like, not to use too many present day things, but they're huge influencers in this world. Like I'm sure the ship is so famous. It's like, just think about now, like if like if all of a sudden like the Enterprise, the wooden ship, sailed in to a harbor with like time refugees, it would be the most famous ship on the planet, provided that the CIA or the FBI didn't hide it and or whatever. But that would be, I would think that that's like what Discovery is like. It's like
Kinda. I mean, you got to think, in the Star Trek universe, weird stuff like that happens all the time. So it actually wouldn't be that crazy.
It's true, but they come from like 1,000 years ago, so it's like they have like real life knowledge that the history books don't tell. It's just something. There's just like a lot. Discovery holds a lot of influence, and you see that like this season. I think
Kovacs handled that in a couple episodes
Right.
ago, didn't he? When he told Tilly, like, oh yeah, we need the cadets to learn from your 23rd century spirit
Right.
and attitude.
Right, and it's like kind of like, so to me that kind of justifies and like kind of like explains why Burnham's kind of at the center of everything, and also just the Disco crew in general. Like everyone's at the center of a lot of stuff, and this was like a good reason.
The show is Star Trek Discovery, so
Well, aside from that, I'm saying there's like
anything they show in the show, they're gonna be the center.
No,
of
I know,
it,
but
right?
like aside from that, you
Like,
kind of
we're
want to
only
always
following one ship.
you kind of always want to like see a believability to like, why is the Enterprise always the nearest ship? You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I'm saying is like I see that like kind of Disco has to be the one.
This is something
like,
that Brian says. Like, sometimes the Yorktown is the nearest ship, and the Yorktown or the Excelsior or the Reliant or whatever. Like, sometimes they're the nearest ship, and they go and like do that mission. But if the show's not set there, we don't see it. So
yeah, that's fair. I guess I'm just trying to say that like this scene was like a culmination of the like little adventures we've seen Disco go on, and it was a nice way to see that come together, and like how Burnham has touched all these people, and they're kind of like look at her.
Yeah, like the Butterfly King,
right.
the Alshane. They're the Alshane
or
people.
something like
The
that,
Alshane King, Liu. He says like, no, we can't just assume hostility. He learned that because of his encounter with Discovery. So it made him kind of a better person. So yeah, we get to see that followed back up on. Yeah, so it maintains a sense of continuity in the show, using their own recent continuity, which is always something Star Trek is typically pretty good at.
Yeah, it like
But
hammers it in kind of like to kind of solidify like what's going on. It's cool.
I thought they did a good job with how they framed this debate, though, with the weapon is designed to attack the device, and it's not as aggressive as actually attacking the people specifically. It's like we don't know if it'll go through their wormhole and hurt them or not. But it's like, do we do this to spare the next planet? So it kind of threaded that needle of not being too mindlessly preemptive aggressive. It was very understandable why someone like Book, who probably really values life, why he would be so open to using it.
It seemed like a good idea to me too. I mean, other than the tearing subspace part, but
Yeah,
like the concept was good. It's like you disable this thing and
it's just not very
and
environmentally friendly.
friendly. Yeah, it's the only
It
caveat.
can render warp drive impossible in that sector of space, which is a hell of a thing to risk, because like we just now got warp travel, back for a lot of people with the dilithium crisis from the burn. So
Right.
you're already going to try to squander that. Is it worth it or not?
And it makes sense that everyone would be kind of like on edge. It's like, oh, okay, we just solved the burn, but like, is this another thing that's, it kind of also echoes like current times where we're all like, oh no, another variant type of thing, like, so it's very interesting. The way it works out, and you see that like kind of reaction I feel in the delegates, like here in this one room in this scene you get like a cool glimpse of the state of the galaxy and how it feels and stuff like that, because it's all four quadrants too, which is another cool thing about Star Trek Discovery. Is like we're now talking about a galactic scale. Like we're no longer just a quadrant
Yeah.
focused show. We're focused on all four quadrants. So we're gonna see things that are familiar but also strange. Like like it's gonna be cool.
I mean, we've kind of already seen all four quadrants just within Berman era Star Trek, but I mean, it makes sense to have that larger playground for Discovery if you're going this far into the future, and also have a ship that can go anywhere with the spore drive.
Yeah,
And that was one of the things about Tarka's plan, is that it would require the Discovery, or at least a spore drive of some kind. Now that apparently that's something you can replicate, but if you pay attention to what happened before, where Tarka's trying to like talk Book into kind of supporting his agenda. There's multiple reasons why he wants Book. He needs the guy who's the victim of the DMA, who can go and testify as a witness to its destruction and the tragedy that this thing can create. But also he needs one of the two spore drive operators, because he says the only way to get to the actual DMA controller is to spore drive into kind of the eye at the center of the storm in the middle of the anomaly.
yeah, exactly.
So that's probably why he's been so chummy with Book. He even tells him, he says, don't mistake friendliness for friendship.
Right.
So I don't know about Tarka. We get more of his backstory in a moment, and I think that's genuine. But I could also see him, kind of stabbing Book in the back if that suited him to continue to forward his agenda to get to his goal.
Yeah, there's a few cues or clues that are making me really suspicious of Tarka at this stage. One is that like he's kind of, I think he's got a hidden agenda that we don't know yet. Like I think he's sincere about what he said about his friend and all that stuff, but there's something else, because he left his Book remarks in one scene like I removed my scar as soon as I could. Like it's
Yeah, well,
silly,
let's talk about that
like,
stuff. With
okay.
we get and after they take that recess, and the president talks to Book. We
Yeah,
kind of get set up that side, and then Tarka talks to. Oh, I'm sorry. The president talks to Burnham and sets up that side of the debate, and
Tarka
Book
talks
to Tarka. And you can kind of see the manipulation. I think, but yeah, they're talking about they're both victims of the Emerald Chain. They give a little bit more detail on why Tarka has that scar on his neck, but it's what a lot of us were talking about. It was like, oh yeah, from that episode Sanctuary when Rin the Andorian was putting bombs in people's necks. But we learned that Tarka's friend is either dead or waiting for him in another universe. And you kind of sound like they might have been lovers, maybe not, but
I got that vibe too. But I'm very easy to ship, so I think the trials of Stamets in the chat is always telling me not to ship too much, but I can't help it. I'm sorry, I'm a shipper.
But yeah, and then we get like the big debate between Book and Burnham, but before we get to that, I thought that it was so messed up for Burnham, the situation. The president places Burnham in because the president is like clearly like, I do not want to use this dude Tarka's weapon. I want to go with a diplomatic approach. And Burnham was like, yeah, you need to tell people that people will listen to you. And she's like, nah, I got to look neutral. I don't want to piss off Earth. I don't want to piss off these other people we're trying to keep happy in the Federation. We're trying to bring into the Federation. I'm not going to do it. So when they actually go to debate, and Book, by the way, there's so many good performances in this episode, like David Ajala giving that teary-eyed speech that he gives, and then everyone's reaction to it. Everyone's applauding, and you're just like, oh my god, they're totally going to vote in favor of Book. And then the president, like, is anyone else going to say anything? No? Well, I guess... And then Burnham is just like, shit, okay, you're going to do this to me, Madam President. I guess I'll be the one to go and speak up against this man I'm in love with and be the jerk and say, like, all that stuff is cool and it's sad and I get where you're coming from, but no, we can't go and just attack this thing with the weapon. Sorry, we can't do that.
And the full part of the full part of the title comes into play where she's like, the Federation was founded not to destroy, but to connect. So that was a really
so I was
nice...
wondering what that meant, like, but to connect. Like, what does that mean?
You're right. It was in the speech. So this is the moment where I was like, oh, like I get it.
Because it was dot, but to connect.
But to connect, which
so I was
is
like,
so
so it's like part of a quote, but there's supposed to be something else in front of it. Like, I don't think that's from Shakespeare. I don't think that's from...
I looked it all up and everything, and then it wasn't until I watched it the second time where I was like, oh, it's right there. It's like, that's what it is. That was a cool thing. Like it's another nice little touch. We were talking about like the difference between Berman era Star Trek titles versus TOS era. And I think these are nice. I always
DS9 had some good episode titles.
Yeah.
But
but I agree that was a well set up thing with the two parallel situations and bringing the two sides of the argument where it had to be these two people kind of like talking about it, and it was heartbreaking because
they're both kind of being used to like they're speaking like genuinely, like from the heart, like what they believe, but Tarka is totally using Book and the president is totally like using Burnham. So like they actually like they don't want to have like this confrontation. Like I think they're sincerely like in love with each other and want to be on each other's side, but it's like these all these other forces are pitting them against each other at loggerheads, and I love that. I love like the beauty of the drama of like this big Star Trek moral quandary idea. What do we do, and having it be pared down to these two people who we love, seeing them in love. And see that conflict in them. It's really good drama. It was very impressive that how well they pulled this off.
Yeah, there's a moment also in that scene. Like one of the things that I like is that Book is so like kind of he can't hold back. He actually interrupts Burnham at one moment, and then Burnham just like finishes with saying like, "I hope no matter." The heartbreaking part where I was like, "Uh-oh, this is not gonna go well," is that where she's like, "I hope no matter what the decision, this whole delegation can stand by that decision," right? Like saying like,
okay, we won't split her off. We'll all support whatever we decide.
And Book says no, that some things are like you just can't. Like he's saying no.
Yeah, I have the quote here in my notes. Sometimes sometimes differences are too great. Sometimes you just have to accept the consequences of that. Yeah, when I was showing this episode to Antonia, I'd already seen it a couple of times, but when she was watching it, it got to that part, and she was just like, "Oh shit," or like, "Oh damn," or something like. She had like some verbal reaction to. I heard her watching it. So I was in a different room, but I could hear her reacting.
But yeah, so that was a really profound moment, and yeah, they acted their hearts out.
The
The
moment before
performances
the
were
debate,
great.
when Book and Burnham are talking to each other, I guess like when they have the recess before the big speeches, Book is even saying like, like you're all about doing like the big actions like this. What about you and the Klingons and stuff
Right.
like that?
Someone in the chat asked about the Klingons. Hey, they mentioned them. Like, no, I know they mentioned the Klingons of old, but
Yeah, and
I think
they've shown the Klingons on their star charts in Starfleet HQ
right. So
in season
yeah,
3. The Klingons are out there somewhere. We'll see them. I think at some point in Discovery again. I might be wrong, but I think they'll show up.
I saw a joke, and I mean this with love, but it was kind of funny. Is that like the Klingons have been redesigned so radically that we've actually seen them, but we just don't recognize them. But I'm just I don't mind. Father's not amused. They have
I didn't.
elephant.
I was trying to read some of our comments. What did you say?
Oh, I said there was a funny joke. I say this with love to Star Trek Discovery at this point because I like the Klingon redesign now, but that
You
I
do?
was saying that, well, yeah, I actually do. I think I miss them. I miss Laurel and I miss all those guys. Like I want to see more Klingons, just like everyone. But the joke was we've seen the Klingons. They've just been redesigned, so we don't know what they look like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
They're one of
so
these
I
other species.
yeah, so I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, and in addition to David Ajala and Sonequa Martin Green doing really good jobs delivering these passionate speeches, I thought that Tarka had some really strong reactions. Like when Book is speaking and Tarka looks, like he's real into what's going on. He's the one who like starts the applause. Everyone starts clapping, and then when Burnham is talking and is doing a good job, you see Tarka looking kind of nervous. He's like, "Oh shit! I thought we had this one in the bag. Like, this
Yeah.
might not be the easy layup I thought it was gonna be."
Yeah, I like that she was a formidable target, and also the first time of their meeting, that whole thing was pretty cool. Like, it dawned on me. It was like a little surprise. I was like, "Wait a second, they've met before, and they haven't." So it's kind of a cool thing that they
Yeah, they
did.
were both in that episode, the examples, but never on screen together.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Burnham eventually convinces everyone to vote in her favor, and we get to see a bunch of different aliens, some familiar ones. I got some Gorn eggs I'll talk about later in the show in our Gorn egg section. That's all of our in jokes, Easter eggs, and continuity connections. But yeah, the this is what I was talking about, where it like didn't make a ton of sense to me. Like, if you count up how many people are actually there voting, it's like way less than 60. So it's not even all the Federation worlds. Some planets are represented by more than one delegate. Some vote on both sides of the issue.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
that.
the Federation gets multiple votes, and there's even a Federation vote, one in the red, one in the green. So there's like the whoever is voting on behalf of the Federation. I get like Starfleet might have some type of official vote, or maybe they're even like the tiebreaker. Kind of make more sense for Admiral Vance to be the one casting that vote, but I guess like anyone from Starfleet can represent Starfleet, and or any command level person.
My guess is that Admiral Vance was sidelined
He had
again.
the stomach bug again.
Yeah, because she established Rylac established that like you said earlier, also that she's using kind of Burnham. She's using the hero of the the hero from the past. As it's kind of like a Captain America thing where he's being used to sell bonds. In a weird way. So I think that's why Burnham was chosen to represent the Starfleet. Instead of it's just a formality. I guess who's there? I don't know, or the president can override it or
Oh,
whatever.
I think she was just there because that's who the president
chose.
wanted.
Yeah.
she probably knew that like she could use her to like argue against Book, and
Yeah.
because she's like, I'm not going to be the one to take a side publicly. You know,
Right.
I can't risk my neutrality. I'm going to make you
Right.
do it.
But it should be but it like it makes sense that you would think that the CNC would be the the person who makes that vote, who casts
Yeah.
that vote. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wish like he had just been there just to like raise his hand.
Right.
You know, they are obviously going to have Burnham here because whatever their plan, whatever approach they go with, they need the discovery. That's like the first thing after the votes are counted. Like the president is like, Michael, don't go anywhere. I'm totally going to use you and your ship. So
Yeah. You need to take the Disco
I'm
needs to
keeping
take the
you
lead.
under my thumb. I got work for you to do.
Right.
And then you see the reactions of Tarka and Book where they're crushed and they kind of just walk off. And of course they have their own plan how they're going to react to this, but. Yeah, it was really cool because I'm watching this episode and I'm all like kind of on the edge of my seat, like like how is Burnham going to respond to this passionate speech that Book gave, and then how are the votes going to land? Like what because I honestly like didn't know, like maybe they will vote in Book's favor, and then we'll have to deal with that, and so I thought it was a lot of fun to have the suspense come from this political talky stuff and not be from any of the big action that they sometimes do in this show.
Right.
It's one of the things that they've really done in season 4, and maybe it's because of the COVID stuff, having more time to not only punch up your scripts but also knowing that a lot of your shooting is going to be limited. You're going to be able to go to locations a lot less. Maybe like some of the big action stuff is just harder to do for whatever reason. Can't bring on stunt people for like the big kung fu battles or whatever the issue is. But yeah, in season 4, the show is a little, I don't want to say like less energized, but just like it's a little slower. It's a little more focused, and it takes time to breathe.
Yeah.
And it's a little more like calm and collective in a good way, in a positive way. And I think they can still do, the fun action stuff. We got a little bit of that in, the first episode. Those weird explosive beetles a couple of weeks ago. So they can still do their fun actiony stuff.
The Co-op Milat
they're
fights
less
were pretty
reliant.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Co-op Milat, they're always going to be, fun action. But yeah, the show just overall is less reliant on that and able to depend more on the stronger writing and characters and dialogue. And I really have enjoyed that in season 4.
I share that sentiment. I think they just found the right balance, but I do think that like a lot of the factors you named are 100%, visible in the final product, but it's not, it doesn't take away from it. I think they should actually continue to employ some of these things or these features, because I do think that it gives the show a little bit more, as you said, like space, like it feels a little bit more, lived in, if you will, which is nice.
Let me also ask you before we change topics and go to our B story, but just one last thing on the assembly debate, beyond the the wonky voting, and why Navarre had so many. Is it the Senate where like everyone gets the same number of representatives, or is it like the House of Representatives where some state will have a bunch, another state might only
I think
have
that's
one.
It's got to be like that. It's
But then some planets don't even show up. I mean, you
in
said
all
that
of-
they're phoning
yeah,
it in, but
they're phoning it in. She says like remote viewers. I think that like that's something that we've never. Enterprise gets the closest to showing us like how like the political how like a more detailed political landscape of like the Federation and maybe Deep Space Nine.
Enterprise, like there's not even a Federation in Enterprise.
No, but like the workings, the politics between the core worlds, like it gave me like a better idea of that like aspect of Star Trek. But I feel like every other Star Trek kind of the Federation is less of a focus than Starfleet. Like it's more all about Starfleet. So this is like the government, rather the government's less of a focus than the Navy, if you will. You know what I mean? Like, to simplify it even further. And Discovery's doing a good job of giving us more of the government, like what's going on in the, beyond just like the workings of Starfleet.
Well, they're all under the same roof now. They said, like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, the Federation and Starfleet basically
Yeah.
combined into one thing, and we're all at, like, this one HQ building. So it
And
makes
so,
it easy
yeah,
to show all that stuff.
show all that stuff off. Yeah, you're right. It like brings it all into one room, so to speak. Just like this episode brought everyone into one room.
Except for the people who you said were phoning it in. But that makes me think of something else. It's like you're either for action or against action. Like, what if you're not casting a vote? It's like what, I didn't raise my hand, but that doesn't mean like I'm voting in opposition to that. Like, that was kind of weird. But
Yeah. Maybe there was like there's an unsaid other button that like some people were pushing.
I just wish it would have been like the eyes and the nose, and then be like, the eyes have it, or whatever. But
yeah, it's true. I agree. I will say that the voting system thing looked cool. I always like these like I like the way that they've been doing all these like holographic displays that kind of like float where it all looked very good and consistent, and like there's like a design language going on like that's very similar to LCARS, but like it seems like it seems like far out. Like, I like that about it. It's pretty cool.
Did you notice that Provost, I think that's his title, Provost, Stakir came back, the Vulcan scientist?
No, I didn't notice.
He's officially a recurring character now.
Provost. Oh, that's cool.
And we get another like ugly Ferengi.
There was a Zindi, right? Like, well, you're gonna save that for later.
I just want to
all that. Yeah.
Just want to point out that like I said, like I'm pretty sure like all the Ferengi we see in Disco are gonna be like the ugly redesign.
So wait, let me like. I don't know. I mean, I see a Ferengi there, but also I see how like Ferengi could evolve into that. It's like 1,000 years, like 900, 800 years later after we've seen him. Again,
I don't know. Like Adira and Admiral Vance don't look that different from like Burnham and Stamets and Culber.
We've seen evidence in Star Trek that like other species don't care as much about genetic manipulation, like adding genes to their genomes and like altering their genes, but humans seem to be like
I think there might have been like a Ferengi colony where there was like a lot of interbreeding with another species or something, and we're just seeing like the Ferengi from that planet.
From that planet, exactly. There's a myriad of reasons
until we go to Ferenginar in season 5, and they're all going to look like that, and it's going to blow that theory out of the water.
I know. I noticed that. Yeah, it's cool. Like, I noticed something cool about the logo, the Ferengi logo. When we get to the Gornegs, maybe I'll be able to point it out to you.
But yeah, I had something else I was going to bring up about this stuff, and then I got sidetracked talking about the voting again, and I forgot what it was.
Could it have been to do with? No, I think that there's everything there. Well, we know that we find out from this about the other alternate. Not just the idea of like refugees from other realities, I guess.
But I don't think anyone's from another reality. I think they said, didn't they say they discovered a parallel universe where there was no burn and they're trying to go over there?
Oh, but he says it. Okay, I always get confused because I feel like he keeps saying like his friend was from there and that he was gonna go home. But I guess I have to watch it one more time.
He called it his new home.
His new home. Never mind. Got it.
Yeah, they said that they would meet up over there.
So they were going to jump out of our reality. He's got tech that would let him go to this other galaxy, and his friend's already there possibly, and he's trying to go there. Which wasn't
that hard in the 24th century when you could just have this little device you could use any transporter to get to the mirror universe. But I'm thinking the mirror universe is like a closer universe. It's easier to jump into, and like the universe they're trying to get to is further away. Kovac explained in season 3 that sometimes these parallel universes can move further apart and get more difficult to get from one to the next. So
I want to know how they knew what the other, like, it's all very
because they were doing research for the Emerald Chain to find an alternative to dilithium, and somehow they were able to discover this universe, and they knew they needed a extreme power
I get it
source to get there.
it's like it's just like maybe there was an account of another person who came from that universe and they stumbled upon it and
Yeah,
discovered
or
like
maybe they were
yeah.
trying to do something similar to Spore Drive, which, the mycelial network connects to other universes, as they've
That's right.
described
That's
before.
right.
So they might have been doing something like that, and that's how they because they just discovered it,
That
and they're like,
mycelial
"Oh,
network's
that
the cool.
timeline looks awesome. We need to hop on over to there instead of being slaves for the Emerald Chain."
That mycelial network's pretty cool. It takes Star Trek, the possibilities of Star Trek to a whole new level. It's like a very cool thing.
But in addition to that, the last thing I was going to bring up about the voting in the assembly, I remember what it was now. Uh, were you ever kind of siding with the aggressive side of like, oh yeah, they should use this thing in self defense? Don't let it blow up any more planets. Or were you always kind of like, no, we got to do like the traditional Federation thing and reach out with science and diplomacy first?
I never took that side, but I was afraid in the episode that that was going to be the majority vote.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so I was
I
worried
I
about
found
that.
it very, like I was saying earlier, where they really threaded the needle of making it be. It's not too counter Federation, if that makes sense. It's not so extreme that like I would be like, no, I can't believe you would even consider doing something so horrible. It actually made a lot of sense how they were saying that it was just something that was going to blow up this device that creates this bad anomaly. It was only a fear of like, well, that could be perceived as aggression, or it could damage space itself, or it could have a negative effect through the wormhole and hurt someone
Right.
else, maybe hypothetically. So I thought that was a good place to take it just that far and no farther, to where we can still kind of see like why Book would side with something like that.
Yeah, I understood his perspective. I didn't feel like he was like totally wrong, but I personally was just not like I didn't like the idea of taking a chance and creating like a retaliation or to me the diplomacy argument was the stronger one, the first contact argument. But I get it. I got
Yeah.
where he was like coming from.
Well, let's hop on over to our B story and talk about some AI shenanigans with Zora. But yeah, Kovic starts his evaluation on what to do with Zora. Do we extract or not to extract? He meets with Saru and Kolber and a very worried Stamets, who seems to be the only one clearly uncomfortable with the ship's computer suddenly having emotions. Gray and Adira crash the meeting and try to advocate on Zora's behalf and her right to exist as she is. The thing that I think made me laugh out loud in this was when Stamets comes into the meeting and he puts on some music and he's like, "All right, group hug, everyone, let's hug it out," and no one even inches closer to him, which is kind of weird because people hug each other a lot on Discovery, but I guess not if Kovic is in the room. Like,
Yeah,
we don't hug in front of Kovic.
and like yeah, and it was really funny that it didn't land the way he was he wanted it to. It was great.
But yeah,
But
he's the one arguing some of the concerns that I've actually like experienced in reaction to last week's episode, in reaction to stormy weather.
yeah, and he's I do like that. I do like that line that Kovic has in this scene where he's like, he's insisting that like actually your method is like counterproductive. It's full transparency is what's needed, and he involves Zora. And the whole time, I think Kovic. What I like is that Kovic suspects that Zora is not only sentient but perhaps like a life form. That's kind of like the way she's acting. So he's treating her that way, and he's like
Yeah.
very
Well,
like
yeah, he,
it's
he
very
knows that
cool.
she is, because that's not actually what they're debating. They're debating on do we need to extract her, because you can't have AI in integrated systems. And
Right.
this is something that our friend Trek on the Tube had brought up before. It was about how maybe you shouldn't have like AI controlling your ship, and well, it turns out there's actually rules about that. And then the whole idea of like you know uh, you need some way to take control of the computer, if if she's that powerful, and the idea of like the kill switch here, and like yeah, that's so unethical. You wouldn't do that to anyone else. You wouldn't make anyone else on your ship walk around with a bomb in the back of their neck. Like that's how the Emerald Chain operates.
Right.
Like,
Right. Exactly. That
uh,
was really good stuff, and I still like think there's a good argument to be made that, like, and Trek on the Tube kind of like is on this. He actually, if we've been talking about TNG for a long time, we used to talk about it, rather I should say, on discussions, and every time Data did something like steal the Enterprise or like like whatever, he would be like, see, this is like why AI can't.
but why doesn't he say that, like, if someone else gets mind controlled and does something bad?
I know. I agree. I'm on
Like
that side as well. It's true.
how often do like people get possessed in Star Trek?
Well,
It happens a lot.
how cool is it that Saru kind of like brings that up
Yeah.
in the arguments later on? He kind of actually brings that same exact point up, which is like, you have no idea. I could open an airlock, or do something right now, like, and there is a kill switch for everyone, which is like you could phaser them. Fortunately, it's a stun switch if you're in Starfleet, but hopefully.
I mean, you can blast the computer core too. So
Right, you could also do that. So the kill switch was a nice gesture though from Zora.
yes,
Like, yeah. So
that it kind of helped show her intent, and then I like that they like debated, like, it took like this idea. It's kind of like an obvious idea, and then they debate the ethics of it. And I agree with the conclusion that they actually reach of like no, like, we wouldn't have this expectation of anyone else. It'd be
yeah.
wrong to do it to you and no one else. And it reminded me also, as someone who is a big fan of DC Comics, that was something that happened with Superman in the comics. Is there was a kryptonite ring that Lex Luthor made and wore on his hand, and eventually, like, Superman came into possession of this ring, which would kill him, and he gave it to Batman, and he said, "You hold on to this. If I'm ever out of control for some reason, if I get like brainwashed by an alien or whatever, like, if and I have to be stopped, like, here, like, you have this ring to stop me."
yeah, it's cool. I mean it is a good gesture. Yeah. Well, with Superman especially, I mean, Superman's like indestructible. So
Yeah, like the whole premise is he's the most powerful being on the planet.
on the planet, yeah. So that's like, yeah. But Zora holds great power. I mean, like, that's that is a good analogy for this situation here.
And I like the use of Kovich in this storyline. He's kind of a convenient character for the writers to have, and I brought this up before, but they keep him just mysterious enough that they can kind of use him for whatever they need to use him for, and I don't mind them having that utility. I think that's probably advantageous for the show overall. But he says to Burnham at the beginning of this episode, he's an expert in cognitive science and specifically AI. I'm just like, dude, this guy is an expert at a lot of stuff. In season 3, he told Giorgio he had been like an expert on the mirror universe and had been studying it since he was a boy and stuff like that. So it's like, man, Kovich, he's just like a jack of all trades, right? But
Yeah, he is. I kind of relate to him. I feel like that there's something to be said about it's good to have specialists, but also like a generalist like Kovich. I think organizations should have like people who can kind of like consult, as he says about himself. He said that, like, Starfleet asked me to consult for the Academy. Like, like, he's got so much experience and he's done so many different things that really he can go into any situation. I like that they throw him around into like just difficult places or puzzles to solve. He might be like, in that way, he might be kind of like a character like similar to Sherlock Holmes, like, who, a consulting detective, if you will, and where it's like, oh, we have this big mystery and we know you have a lot of success solving mysteries, you're very good at logic and all this and stuff. Kovich, you go into that, and he likes it. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't like want to sit behind a desk. He doesn't want to just do one thing, and that's a cool job.
and he does kind of come off as a little, like, little creepy. Like you do kind of worry about him sometimes. But ultimately, like he always kind of does like the right thing, and I think like genuinely, like in his heart, he's not a shady guy. He might present himself like that as kind of a power move sometimes, but I think he genuinely has like those strong core Federation values and ideals at heart,
Yeah.
and sometimes he reveals it, sometimes he shows it. We got that a little bit at the end of season 3 when he was talking to Admiral Vance. We got that a little bit when he was talking to Tilly earlier in season 4, and we get that here in this episode.
Yeah, especially at the end, the like that moment where that he he says to Stamets, "Well, you were actually on evaluation just as much." That was an example of like that was like a Kovich, very Starfleet, very Federation, very like fair thing to do, and I liked Stamets' response to him in that as well. It was cool.
And he doesn't know everything. Like he was kind of curious, and you could tell like he is kind of like learning as the audience and the other characters are learning what exactly is going on with the Zora. Like when we find out she has like the subconscious, and even I guess before that, the reveal of like her mission parameters. When she said she gave herself her own primary
Parameters.
objective. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
her own like core programming. Like she's altered it herself, and she's concerned with protecting the crew. She loves the crew, and I like that idea. That we can kind of control our own programming. Like certain things might be in our nature, and it's just kind of we're kind of wired a certain way. But we can, to some degree, we can kind of control that and kind of try to improve ourselves. I like the message of that
Yeah, it's
we're all
deep.
capable of growth.
I agree. That's pretty
You
cool.
shouldn't accept your base programming. If you don't like it, you can try to change it and grow as a person.
It was cool to see. I've been really taking note of Stamets' growth this season, and again, just like a really good kind of like. I feel like he went in two wild, kind of like extreme directions before, and now we're kind of seeing like Stamets find his kind of balance again, if you will, and
Yeah.
so. But he's
Well,
also evolving as a character, and I really enjoy
he's
it.
also a man from the 23rd century. And they bring
Yeah,
up like his only encounter with artificial intelligence was with Control.
that's right.
So
That's
it
right.
left a
Yeah.
bad taste in his
That
mouth.
was a
And
good
another good use of continuity.
Yeah, that was another great use of continuity because it was traumatic. I mean, these guys, that's their whole reason for like they left their whole lives behind to stop an AI from,
Even though
achieving.
Georgia had already like kung fu kicked it to death, and they went through the wormhole for seemingly no reason. Like, I guess they were trying to hide the spore, they were trying to hide the sphere data from someone else. Maybe
Well,
if
yeah,
so they didn't articulate that. But
they, yeah, I think, I think it had to still happen because like you had to, the sphere data was only safe from anyone, in the future. So yeah,
why? What if they got to the future and they're just like surrounded by like a fleet of ships? Like we've been waiting on the sphere data. Like
for a thousand years,
we
it
knew
coulda it's
we
true.
heard about that wormhole, and so we have our entire armada here waiting for
That
you.
could have happened. It's
So,
true. That's a
but
totally timey wimey
whatever.
thing. That could happen.
I hated that in season 2, and I've had to just learn to accept it.
Right on.
But just like I learned to accept that, Stamets learns to accept Zora. But what I was trying to say about like him being like this old head from the 23rd century, the people that are like young, that are like of the era, Gray and Adira and Kovich, all of them are a lot more like pro Zora and more open minded. And I kind of thought that was kind of cool how in real life, young people are kind of more open minded to like newer forms of or not even newer, but just less common forms of identity and things that traditionally haven't really been talked about a lot, and younger people have in some ways a lot more exposure and more education on a lot of this stuff. So I kind of like the way that was represented by the young characters in the show of Adira and Gray.
And also the native characters of the century. You're right. That's a good observation. I like that a lot. There was just so much going on here too. Just like it was a very like dynamic. Like each character brought like something. Culber was making great points. Also where and you could. I liked how he was being supportive of Paul, but also questioning Paul. Like and then even Paul even gives that one like compliment about like someone says something about like him making a good point And maybe it was Zora when he comes, she finally comes to the conclusion. He's like, well, I guess it pays off, being in a relationship with with someone who's a
Yeah.
therapist and
Well,
stuff
that's
like
after
that.
he
So
gives like that speech that's cuts back and forth with Michael's speech. But
right.
he watches the clip show, and when they find Zora's subconscious, he watches the clip show, and he's
50
like,
Shades of Zora. Sorry.
I see into this thing's heart. I know that it seems like care about us loving each other. Does raise some interesting questions about privacy aboard the
Yeah,
ship, which
it's
they
true.
can bring that up. Like Zora only like peeks in if you say like Zora, it's kind of like when you talk to your smart home or something. Even though those are always listening. Hopefully Zora has like a little bit better
I think
privacy
it's
parameters.
I think yeah, I think they did a good job with this because they were saying that this was not even Zora wasn't even aware of these images until they brought it up. Like it's
Yeah,
just like
they shine a light on that. Like it's not like something
yeah,
she threw together herself. It's something like they
right,
kind of discover that she didn't even know about.
yeah,
They also
so
set up the thing with Gray seeing Trill, so they put that in there, and like
right. That was
Adira
a
being like,
cool
"Oh, you're
yeah,
really homesick. I'm gonna have to let you go home," and that makes me sad.
yep.
But yeah, Stamets has the conversation with Zora where he's like, "Look, I'll trust you if you trust us, and you need to trust us with these coordinates." And then she agrees, and they get the coordinates. So I'm guessing that's what they'll be doing in the next episode. Is actually
Has anyone figured out where those coordinates are on it?
it doesn't. It's the numbers that are on screen don't match the way any
Anything.
coordinates have ever worked in Star Trek. It's just a bunch of gibberish. That's
Okay.
obviously. I mean, that's obviously what they use in the 32nd century.
That's my next tattoo, Father, right there on the screen. Like those coordinates are gonna be my tattoo. Actually, it'd
Well,
be my
good
first. I
luck
don't
with
have
that.
a next tattoo. It'd be my first tattoo.
I do want a tattoo of 47, but I don't know exactly how or where or what I want to do with that. But I'm probably gonna get that at some point. It'll be my
Right
next
on.
tattoo.
Maybe it'll happen in Star Trek Las Vegas. Who knows? I mean, Star Trek. Sorry, Chicago. Who knows?
Las Vegas would make more sense for
A tattoo.
they
Yeah,
have a
true.
tattoo shop within the Rio. Well, they're remodeling the Rio, so who knows if that'll ever be an option again. But there's lots of places to get tattoos in Vegas, though. I'm sure there are. But I guess let's just wrap up this B story. We have Kovic completes his evaluation. He declares Zora a new type of life form. So she's not just a AI. She's like a new this new thing,
Right.
which kind of makes sense because they explain her as being this combination of the sphere data and the ship's computer and all the logs and everything of discovery and the 32nd technology combined with the 23rd century technology. And so yeah, she's definitely a unique thing. And the idea of them letting her keep the ship as her body, and the idea of like, I guess that kind of parallels like body positivity. Like if you're happy within your own skin and you like who you are, and
Yeah, I dig
being
that.
able to have that and keep that and have that defended for you. She even says like it feels marvelous being seen. So good for her, good for Zora.
Yeah, that was a great. I like this little tie up to this storyline. It is interesting that we have this character now. That's already 2 episodes. We've had a lot of time devoted to this character, and I kind of like it. It's like it is. She reminds me a lot of a lot of the things that I like about Data is that like Data helped us understand humanity through him searching for a way to be human, like, and so I think Zora is taking it to a next level with like ideas about consciousness and like how like I think like consciousness and sentience and like like I think we're starting to see like there are alternative forms of intelligence and sentience and sapience. I've always been one for recognizing the personhood of animals, like especially like dolphins, and there's some countries that have actually recognized dolphins as non-human persons, and so I kind of like this idea of like the life form that's right in front of you that you didn't like, think of as like a life form is actually a life form. It's nice to be seen, and so I hope we do that too. My cat is a non-human person. Damn it!
I
Is all I gotta
don't
say.
think that was the intent of the writing here, and I definitely didn't read it like that. But if that's how you want to interpret it, then more power to you. You read it however you want.
Chalupa Chong says, "I don't adore a Zora."
Well, I don't really think of that being like something relatable in real life. Of like we experience like different forms of intelligence. I think it's I guess what you were saying with maybe like some smart animals, but I don't know enough about that
Hey, the
to
whale
really
probe,
discuss it.
like
Yeah,
totally
we have
establishes.
belugas in Starfleet in the
Yeah,
24th
it's true.
century, so why
It's
not?
true. So,
But I think it my read on it was that it was more about recognizing people in their own skin and their right to exist how they identify and how they are, and again more the I think delightful allegory of telling these types of stories and allowing a trans and non-binary couple actually played by those types of actors be at the forefront of it, and they don't have to be the victims of the story. They can tell like this allegory with the ship's computer, and I
yeah.
think that's very tastefully done. Me being someone not part of those communities, but just observing, that's my read on it. I think like the climax of this whole B story though is when Stamets dismantles the kill switch. The guy who wanted it, who was in favor of it at the beginning, he's now the one who takes it apart. And it's also his idea that Zora be folded into Starfleet and be part of the official command structure, which solves the problem at the beginning of the episode. When the captain gives her an order and she doesn't follow it because of her feelings. And it's like, okay, well, we've addressed that. And Stamets is trusting Zora. Zora is trusting the crew now. And Kovic, of course, saying that, like, yeah, Stamets, if you couldn't accept the computer, I was actually going to remove you from the ship.
Right.
And Stamets is like, oh, yeah, like, that's how it should be. Like, if I'm the one who can't accept somebody, the problem was with me, not with that person. So, very good. I was happy with all of that stuff.
Yeah, me too. Thomas Hill in the
Except for the
chat
clip
is
show. I thought that was a little, like I said, like a little cheap.
a little
But other than
disappointing.
that,
Thomas Hill in the chat is asking like, why would you transfer the one guy that could do the spore drive? But Book, assuming Book would probably, right? Like I
yeah.
guess they thought Book would be the spore drive operator.
I thought about that too, though. I thought about that too, Thomas.
Yeah, very very great, solid episode. Nice. I guess we're gonna talk next about the ending of this episode, which kind of like brings it all. Like I thought this was the coolest. Like you have this like episode that's running along at this certain tone, and then all of a sudden, boom! It gives you the surprise ending, and I loved it.
Yeah. Well, before we get to like the big dramatic surprise, there's some stuff with all the delegates leaving HQ. Adira and
Oh,
Gray
right
have
on.
have a conversation in the bar where Adira says like, "Oh, Gray, I can tell like you want to go home, and you're gonna go do like your I guess Guardian internship or what Guardian Academy or whatever you're doing there. So I'll actually go with you. We can take the Trill transport home." And I'll help you get settled in. What I've always appreciated with Del Barrio's acting is that they are very expressive in their face whenever they're kind of reacting to someone else. So whenever a character is doing something like talking to Adira, you always see Blue doing something with her face, reacting to whatever the other actor is saying, and then we see their super expressive face here when Adira gives Gray, this big speech about like I know it's important for you to go home and that's okay. We'll do long distance. I'm cool with it. I know this means a lot to you. I'll even go help you get settled in. And Gray is so happy to hear all this, like, oh my God, this is exactly what I was hoping for. Thank you so much. And they hug to like celebrate. And then you see Adira's face and see they're actually like conflicted and concerned about what's happening. So that was fun drama there. And then hugging their space dads goodbye while they go on their Trill shuttle ride or however they're getting back to the Trill homeworld. Oh, and also while the delegates are departing, we have
Oh, this
the
I missed talking about this on Starfleet
yeah
Boy. Yeah,
Saru
that's
and
true.
Tarina. What the Saru Tarina ship, as in like shipping the couple. Should we call that Serena? Like
Yeah,
Sarina, like
that's it.
Saru Tarina Serena.
That's it. That's it
Okay,
right there.
so it's
Serena.
Serena. Serena from now on. But yeah, so Saru gives his tea plant to Tarita. This was so entertaining to me, just because like it's so like alien and strange. You know, just looking at Saru is kind of always going to be very alien, and then someone playing a Vulcan. But it also felt so real, like their kind of shyness, kind of awkwardness as they're talking to each other. Like they're both feeling like a little vulnerable. They clearly like a strong attraction to one another, and the implication, like it's such a perfect gift, because he's like, oh, now you can like be making me tea back on Navarre for when I drop in to come visit you if you know what's up. So, but yeah, it's like a gift being like here like it basically means like I want to come visit you. Is that okay if I come visit you? Is basically what is symbolized in that.
Do you think they both went into their respective computer databases to see if sexual relationship is possible between a
I
Navarin
mean,
and a
I
and a
think it's like the
Kelpian?
old saying, like where there's a will, there's a way.
There's
So
a way.
we don't need to get any more descriptive than that, though.
I like that
But
answer. It's a very good answer.
yeah, you can use your own imagination with that as much or as little as you choose.
I really
We're a
enjoyed
very
this.
diverse fandom, and some
It's true.
people are really into that. Some people couldn't care less, but you focus on what you want to focus on in Star Trek.
As far as that's further down the road, but as far as what's going on right now with their relationship, it's super adorable. Actually, it's always been like I've always
Yeah,
enjoyed their
it's
like
cute.
their thing. Yeah, it's very cute, and it works really well. And I'm glad they're progressing it with these little moments. This one was particularly nice.
Yeah, and we learn on the Ready Room that it wasn't intentional. It was something that Doug Jones said they kind of started doing on set, the actors, and then the writers followed suit. And that happens a lot. That was kind of
That's
like the
really
whole like
cool. Yeah.
Odo Kira thing on DS9. That was something that the writers noticed the actors doing, and then so they started writing towards it.
Yeah, it's true. That it's we always have to I think keep in mind that like a show is it starts on the page, but there's so many layers that you put on top of it to make the final
Yeah.
product that like it's a team effort. Like there's a
It,
lot of
it
people involved.
This is what I think a lot of fans and audiences don't always understand about like it's a good idea to have some type of plan of like where you're going with the show, but it's actually like a really bad idea to have like your entire series planned out like beat for beat for beat for beat for every episode and just follow these very strict blueprints and construct the whole show on these blueprints. Like you really need to be able to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are and write accordingly, and good shows tend to do that and kind of have to be like on the fly a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, right on.
Um,
I agree with that too.
I mean, I know like Joe Michael Straczynski wrote Babylon 5 with like the whole thing planned out from the beginning, but even that he had to tweak a little bit here and there. So,
And
but
if you guys love Babylon 5, go check out Tex-Trek's Babylon 5 discussions that you can see on his past videos.
yeah, or don't check them out. A lot of the Babylon 5 fans were kind of mean to me. So,
Oh no.
I mean, I get it. Like they're sad that their Star Trek or that their sci-fi show is not as good as Star Trek. So I said it was the second best ever, and
That
like
was
that
not
hurt their
acceptable.
feelings, I guess.
Oh, I'm sorry, Father.
Whatever. I hope that their CW
I-
show is lives up to their hopes and expectations.
I just want to say one more thing about the Blue and Adira, the Gray and Adira storyline, which is, I thought that was like a little bittersweet. Like I thought it made a lot of sense. I liked it because when you're in these, like when you're in your first relationship, when you're that young, like, things could take you apart, and like it feels real, like that, like, they're going to try the long distance thing. Like that's like a common, or like at least an experience I've seen a lot of, growing up.
Yeah, it's like
it's
your
like,
high school sweethearts, and then one of you goes off to college and the other doesn't, or something like that.
yeah, or you go to college to different towns. Like
Yeah.
it's just like a very realistic thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays. I think it's interesting also that Discovery's like kind of removing characters from our like day to day. You know, like it's going to be cool to see how this all like ties in later on and how these characters will come back into play later on and how they'll treat
Yeah,
them
I
going
a
forward.
little bit of like a revolving door.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Non and Saru and Tilly and Gray all leaving the ship and then coming back at different
Coming back,
times.
yeah, in different times. Yeah, it's interesting.
Ash Tyler will come back at some point.
My mom will be very happy.
Oh yeah, she was a fan of Shazad Latif, as I
She
recall.
is, yeah, it's true.
Well, let's talk about the big ending, the
Yeah,
big juicy cliffhanger.
this had me like,
Yeah, this is like the big like oh shit moment. Again,
yeah,
like I heard Antonia react when it was when Tarka beams onto Book's ship and is like, "We only have 90 seconds before they notice I'm gone." And I just heard her be like, "Oh, what's going on?" or something like that. But yeah, they have the plug and play spore drive, which is convenient. They still need a navigator though, so
right.
still only Book or Stamets can use it. As far as we know, there's no other Quajon people hanging out with Starfleet at the moment. But he takes the time to drop off Grudge, so it ties into the opening of the episode when Burnham was trying to, not very successfully, but trying to bond with the cat who doesn't like her because cats can be assholes
Yes, this
sometimes.
is true.
But I like that he's not like bitter and hateful after that debate session in the assembly. He still takes the time to like write her a note and says, "I love you, Michael.
Yeah,
Please
that was
take care
great.
of
A
my
good
girl."
moment.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think that's so much more tragic actually than if he had just been like furious at her. Like I can't believe you would do this, and then he turns into like a whiny crybaby. You know, like it gets like kind of like Anakin Skywalker, like when he's like choking his wife in that terrible garbage movie in the other Star franchise. But yeah, so it's to me it's more sad and more tragic when Book is like, no, like I still love you, I still think of you, you still mean a lot to me, but I'm going to totally betray you right now. And it's as hard as that is for you, it's hard for me too. I love that. And then her reaction to like, oh shit. And like she actually says like shit and then
yeah, it was great.
teleports.
I love that they did the teleport at that time too,
Yeah.
which was cool. Like
With the mobile transporter. I
transport
like
rather.
the
Yeah,
expedience you get from that when you can just beam it like across the ship like
and
site to site like that.
like side to side in a
Yeah,
moment. It's like
it gives
very
it
much
like a
like
little
the cute.
punch to like these big
Yeah,
moments.
yeah, it's true.
And then seeing the book ship spore drive was some fun visuals at the end
Yeah,
to leave
nice.
us hanging until February 10th.
Nice upping of the stakes. We have two ships with spore drives now out there. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. There's like, and we've got like a really tense situation. Discovery's in a quandary. It's gonna be really great. I'm excited about the second half of the season. So a nice little cliffhanger to keep us excited between now and then.
Well, do you have any final thoughts on But to Connect?
Just again, I think I like just really enjoyed, especially when we broke it down. Like the things that really like stood out was all the exposition and dialogue, and like just like it was a really good talky episode, and I loved it. And that little bit of it just gave me that nice little bit of action at the end that like for me to be like whoa, and so. It was great. I'm just so impressed with Star Trek Discovery this season. It's a show that I not only enjoy but look forward to watching. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a lot of big stuff in the second half of the season because, like I said before, that's the stuff they were shooting more recently when I think they're actually going to be able to have bigger groups of actors on set. They're going to be able to like go out on locations a lot more freely. So I also think they might be saving some of the big action. One of the reasons why this was like a little bit more reserved, talky episode, I think they might be saving some of the big stuff for down the road. And I'm hoping that they make it work and don't go too over the top with that. Like kind of how I felt like they did at the end of season 3. But I'm very optimistic and excited to see what happens in February and March.
yep, me too. And then I guess the only other thing is, are we Did you watch the little teaser, or you didn't watch it? Like
I
the
saw little bits of it. I don't really like to watch like previews for
Yeah,
stuff.
that's right.
So I watched a few seconds of it and then turned away.
Okay, then
Um,
we won't talk about that part.
but yeah, we don't like to peek too far ahead on Tex-Trek. We're more about the here and now.
The here and now.
We'll talk about the other stuff when we get to it. I do want to talk about some Gorn eggs, though. All of our Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections I found in the episode that I thought were worth bringing up. There are some fun ones in here. And starting off at the very opening of the episode, when Adira and Stamets are at engineering talking about the quest for finding the origin point of the 10C. The computer, Zora, does say there are 147 possible origin points, each one being 100 parsecs, I think she said. But yeah, so we have a 47, the magical Star Trek number. Always happy to see it show up. We haven't had one in Disco in a while, so very happy to see 47 make an appearance. During the assembly, there are a lot of familiar aliens, many of which we've already seen on Discovery. So I don't like to bring stuff like this up after we've already seen it on a show. But we got some cool logos, some displays, and some of them have been updated. There's some familiar ones like the United Federation of Planets symbol, or the Ferengi Alliance one, which has been tweaked. The Cardassia symbol, the Riza's symbol, Andoria. One of the ones that really stood out though was the Xindi logo. It's upside down from how it was on Enterprise, but there's actually a Xindi insectoid. Looks very different from how he looked on Enterprise. I'm just gonna assume that this is like what the Xindi insectoids look like when they're older. They go through like a metamorphosis or something. That sounds like
Molting
insect
or whatever,
like,
yeah,
right?
something. Yeah,
It kind of looks a little bit more realistic because it's like a practical dude in a suit and not CGI. But it does
right.
look like less alien, so I don't know which one people would prefer. I kind of wish they did something like a little bit more insectoid and less human, like in the same spirit as the Enterprise creature. But kind of cool to have the Xindi brought
Yeah.
back up. Also, I don't know how to say this because I never hear it said. I only see it in like Memory Alpha and Star Trek reference books and stuff. But the Amarazan or
Or
Amarazon, or how do you say them?
Amarazon.
But they're a species.
Amarazon. That it's these guys, right?
They're a species we see in Star Trek 4 at the Federation Council assembly in that episode. The dude with like a weird mask with some type of like breathing tubes. So they were there. They were there voting.
Right on.
But yeah, there were Vulcans, Cardassians, Ferengi, Orions, Andorians, Ryzians, Lurians, Trill, Alshane, Osnilus, the octopus heads that I hate in Discovery, Slurm, Betazoids. There are Betazoids there. So cool to see some familiar and some new aliens. We got a few new species, like the Hornish and a few others. So maybe we'll be seeing more of them. They're actually like naming some of these people. So it makes me think they might be reusing them.
Yeah.
But we'll move along to our next Gorn egg, and that is Michael Burnham actually says like during this presentation that when she's speaking, I guess it was before her big speech. It's the early on in the assembly, but when she's presenting there, she talks about tartan voles and denobulan bloodworms.
That's the scene I was trying to reference. Yeah.
Yeah, denobulans being the species of Dr. Phlox from Star Trek Enterprise. So, yeah, a lot of Enterprise references. We had Archer Station, we had Xindi, we have denobulans.
Yeah.
We have that NX-01 snow globe.
Enterprise gets a lot of love in the 32nd century. It's great.
Yeah,
And
it's like 32nd century is like throwback to 22nd century.
yeah, it's true. It's very apt because of the rebuilding of the Federation, being
Oh yeah, the last time
it's
someone was building the Federation.
Federation, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good parallel. I like it. Up next, I want to talk about the isolytic weapon that Tarka developed. Isolytic weapons were banned in the Khitomer Accords, as we're told in this episode, but we were also told that way back in Star Trek Insurrection,
There they
when
are.
we see the Sonat using those weapons, and they were very destructive there. And I don't know if Riker ever filed that protest he said he was going to, but hopefully he did. Hopefully he passed that up through the proper channels.
And
He
we
said,
also
remind me to
learned-
file a protest or something like that. So
we learned that you can manually fly this gigantic, beautiful Sovereign class starship with a joystick, so it's awesome.
with a manual steering column.
Yeah, it's true.
Kovic says that AI programs can't dream unless they've been programmed to. So I think that was just to cover their asses for Data dreaming in the Next
Yeah.
Generation, which was a plot point in a couple of episodes. But
Yep.
so acknowledgement of Data's dreaming. And then the last Gorn egg I have is when, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but I'm going to bring it up anyways. But it's when Tarka calls his little handheld device the Next Generation Spore Drive. And then he says, Aurelio's got to come up with a better name than that. But I think that might have been a nod
That
to
might
Star
have
Trek The
been.
Next Generation.
I'll
Which-
second that.
It's kind of a weird name for a show if you think about it.
Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yeah, like
You know, like every other one is kind of named about like the ship that it's on, or you know, something like that. Or kind of like the concept. I guess that was the concept, The Next Generation. It's like Star Trek, but 80 years later, I guess, is what they're
Yeah.
going for. So it's kind of
You
like
could
a couple generations later, right? But
it is. It's true. The next generation.
yeah, or like 3 generations down the road. But also, a lot of the Berman era episode titles are just kind of like boring one-word episode titles that I no one else talks about it, so that's why I talk about it so much.
It's because no one can remember them all.
Well, because they're hard, they're impossible to remember. We have episodes like Lessons. Oh, what the hell is that about? You know, Amok Time. No one's gonna forget what Amok Time is.
Actually, I can't forget Lessons because that's one of my favorite episodes with Lieutenant Darren, Picard's other romantic interests.
Yeah, the more interesting one than Beverly Crusher.
No.
To each their own. But I'm not gonna have time for subspace transmissions this week. I apologize, but we'd love to hear what you think about this episode, this mid-season finale. So by all means, let us know. You can comment on the YouTube video. You can let me know on Twitter. You can comment on the Tex-Trek Facebook page. You can send me an email. But let us know your thoughts and feelings on But to Connect, and we might share them next week. Next week, we are going to be talking about Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, Episode 6, which I know the name of the episode, but I don't know if it's supposed to be like public knowledge.
Oh, okay.
But I'll just say it's very similar name to the first episode of Discovery Season 4.
I wondered.
So if you can remember what that is. And it's dealing with a similar concept too. So that'll be fun though to check on those kids and see what they're up to over in the Delta Quadrant. I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So please join us for that, and then then we'll be back in the 32nd century in February. But tonight, for those of you checking us out live, there's the night is still young, baby. There's plenty of fun to be had over on Starfleet Boy After Dark. Starfleet Boy, tell everyone what's happening on SBAD or SPAD or however you want to say it.
Yeah, we're oddly, if you put in SBAD in in search,
Just don't do that.
don't do that.
Just put
Yeah,
in
just do
Starfleet Boy After
Starfleet Boy
Dark.
After Dark. Yeah, exactly. Tonight we're just gonna do like kind of a retrospective on 2021 and talk about like everything that happened in the Star Trek world and just in the world of sci-fi in general and fantasy and stuff like that. We're gonna have a special guest. I think they're still coming on. I haven't messaged them yet, so I'll do that. But if you're listening, we're gonna talk about memorabilia and collecting memorabilia and its environmental impact, which is gonna be cool for a quick moment. And then we're also gonna probably talk about the Matrix. You've seen it now, Fathery?
Yeah, I saw it a few
Yeah.
days ago.
It's just gonna be a fun extravaganza. We should have done this last night, as someone pointed out, but we're gonna do it tonight. So this is our New Year's bash celebration, come on over in about an
I
hour.
like how you just totally omitted the other Star franchise, which is not as good as our Star franchise.
Oh, we're definitely going to talk about that. The Book of Boba Fett. The Book of Starfleet Boy, in fact. That's what we'll call the episode. That's the name. There you go.
Well, if you're checking us out live and want to see that, then go on to that channel in
1 hour.
1 hour. So around 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern.
Eastern time, yeah.
Do the math for any other time zones on your own. And be back aboard the Starship Texas next week on our normal night, Friday night, 7 p.m. Central. Until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.